Peru's health system is on the verge of collapse due to a lack of medical oxygen. Thousands of demonstrators paid tribute to George Floyd in the French capital this Tuesday, on the same day that his funeral was being held in the United States. Residents of a slum in Nairobi protested against police brutality on Monday, a week after the death of a homeless man who was shot and killed by Kenyan police. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. Peru's health system is on the verge of collapse due to a lack of medical oxygen. Desperate citizens have been queuing up for hours, with many turning to a black market to get their hands on oxygen cylinders, which can fetch up to $1,400 each. Oxygen is crucial to keep COVID-19 patients alive, and critical cases can use 4 cylinders per day, with refills costing around $50 each. Acknowledging the public outcry, President Martin Vizcarra has announced emergency measures to increase production and access to oxygen for medical use and declared the gas a strategic health resource. Members of Bolivia's Congress and Supreme Electoral Court are meeting both in person and remotely to debate a bill that seeks to make the date for the country's pending elections official. The legislation established that the general elections must be held within a maximum period of 127 days beginning May 3rd. The date agreed upon by all but one party is September 6th and must be voted on by Congress. The movement towards socialism, which won the October 20th election in the first round before being ousted in a coup, supports the date. Its presidential candidate, Luis Arce, is already in the lead according to polls. The Superior Electoral Court of Brazil has resumed hearings on 2 lawsuits against the candidacies of Jair Bolsonaro and Hamilton Mourão in the 2018 presidential elections. Judge Og Fernandes of the Superior Court of Justice recommended that the 2 lawsuits be rejected in November, but Judge Edson Fachin requested more time to review the case. The lawsuits were filed by former presidential candidates Guilherme Boulos and Marina Silva, who denounced the hacking of the Women United Against Bolsonaro Facebook group a month before the elections. The group, which had more than 2.7 million followers, was attacked by hackers who altered its content. The lawsuits demand the annulment of the candidacies of President Bolsonaro and his vice Mourão, in addition to declaring the 2 politicians' ineligibility, having committed electoral abuse. In Argentina, clothes and shoe stores have been allowed to reopen in Buenos Aires, with the gradual lifting of restrictions following more than 2 months of coronavirus lockdown. The move will occur in 18 of the country's 24 provinces. Social distancing measures will remain in place until June 28th and will be more flexible in regions with few or no cases of COVID-19. Schools remain closed, while mass gatherings, shows, concerts and sporting events are still banned. To date, Argentina has registered more than 23,000 coronavirus cases and almost 700 deaths. The Colombian Attorney General's office has launched an investigation into reports that 3 of the country's Navy vessels were found by Venezuela by the Bolivarian Armed Forces, where they remain in custody. Deputy Attorney General Juan Carlos Cortés is leading the probe into why the boats were found in the Meta River on May 12th. The officers in charge of the vessels are accused of being ill-equipped to navigate the vessels through the river, causing them to lose control. The Attorney General's office has ordered that more evidence be collected on the matter. A Colombian doctor on the front lines fighting COVID-19 has expressed fear for his life after receiving death threats and 2 funeral wreaths. Jose Julian Buelva believes that the threats come from paramilitary groups who accuse him of allowing a patient to die.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Julian Buelvas Diaz. I am a doctor. I work in the ICU at Adela de Char Clinic in Soledad. Today, I have received 2 threats, one at my workplace and the other at my home. They accuse me of letting a woman die amidst the pandemic at the ICU. For us, it is impossible that we let anyone die. We prepare ourselves to be able to save lives. This is a cry for help to the national government, for myself, for my colleagues, and for all the doctors in this country. By God, for how long? We got to work every day, and in many cases, we don't even have the necessary conditions, and despite it all, we face this pandemic. By God, for how long?
Venezuela is starting the process of ending the coronavirus lockdown and restarting its economy. This comes after a number of weeks in which the epidemic curve has been mostly flattened.
Early on Monday, the loosening of quarantine restrictions started across Venezuela, weeks after these were strictly implemented.
Venezuela has taken the drastic but needed decision to restrict movement. We all went under mandatory quarantine, and thanks to the social conscience of our people and our civic military union, we have managed to stop local transmission chains and control the pandemic.
Following some adjustments, from June 1st, the economy has slowly been reactivated.
La disciplina, las medidas preventivas de higiene individual y colectiva.
Discipline, preventive measures, social distancing, and widespread testing, going home to make sure our citizens are healthy. Everything helped, but without a doubt, the quarantine was the key to our success.
These measures have been adjusted over time, taking into account international data and the local reality. Venezuela was one of the first countries to impose a mandatory quarantine back in March 16th. As restrictions loosen now, authorities have called on citizens to maintain all hygienic and social distancing protocols. During the first 7 days of the new 7-for-7 system implemented in Venezuela, authorities hope to avoid a surge in cases. The people are getting accustomed to this new system, going back to their normal activities.
Most of the cases we're still seeing are coming from over the border. They say they are keeping things in control, and we can see that, but we recently returned from the Andes and there are plenty of checkpoints.
The hotspot for COVID-19 cases in Venezuela remains its border regions, where 80% of all cases have been discovered.
In Chile, the Council of the National Institute of Human Rights has called for speed and diligence in the clarification of the circumstances surrounding the murder of Alejandro Truquil. The spokesman for the Mapuche indigenous community was shot and killed as he and others were out looking for a lost horse. 3 others were injured in the incident. Following his death, the community published a statement denouncing ongoing police persecutions in the area. According to the statement, since May 13th, the community has been under a state of siege. The council added that this situation is particularly concerning given that he belongs to a protected group under international human rights law. The council also requested that the investigation lead to the punishment of those responsible for his killing. Ecuadorian authorities have reported an airplane crash in Peruvian territory, resulting in 1 death and 3 injured. According to the preliminary report, the accident occurred while the plane was flying over the province of Zarumilla in the Peruvian department of Tumbes. Ecuador's Interior Minister, Maria Paula Romo, confirmed that among the injured are 2 citizens implicated in a corruption case linked to the management of the COVID-19 health crisis, including the purchase of overpriced medical supplies. The minister noted that the Ecuadorian National Police are collaborating with Peruvian authorities in the investigation. Cuban National Director of Epidemiology, Dr. Francisco Duran, offered an update on the COVID-19 epidemic in the country this Tuesday. Dr. Duran was happy to report that for the 10th consecutive day, no new COVID-19 deaths have been reported. Duran highlighted that this is a testament to the effectiveness of the protective measures implemented in the country. 2,067 tests were conducted over the past 24 hours, of which only 5 were positive for COVID-19. All 5 cases are Cubans, 4 of whom are residents in Havana and 1 in the province of Villa Clara. As of this Tuesday, 12 provinces of the island and the special municipality of the Isle of Youth have not reported any new cases for the past 15 days. Jamaica is making the final arrangements to receive international travellers from next Monday. The island reopened its borders to nationals on June 1st and will officially welcome all international tourists on June 15th, according to Tourism Minister Edmund Bartletas. The Caribbean nation has previously announced a 5-point recovery plan for the tourism sector. The plan includes robust health and safety protocols, training for all segments of the industry, and the building of a COVID-19 safety and security infrastructure. Jamaica closed its borders on March 21st and implemented strict lockdown measures amid the novel coronavirus pandemic. More stories coming up after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. George Floyd will be buried in Houston this Tuesday, 2 weeks after his murder by police in a Minneapolis street. George will be laid to rest in a grave next to his mother, Lasenia Floyd. The service at the Fountain of Praise Church comes after 5 days of public memorials in Minneapolis, North Carolina and Houston, and 2 weeks after a Minneapolis police officer was captured on video pressing his knee into Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Floyd's death has sparked a wave of anti-racism and anti-police brutality protests across the world, with thousands calling for an end to social injustice.
So we come in peace today.
And thousands of demonstrators paid tribute to George Floyd in the French capital this Tuesday, on the same day that his funeral was being held in the United States. Thousands gathered in Paris to show their solidarity with US protests against racism and police brutality. The demonstrators observed 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence in tribute to Floyd. Protesters also denounced brutality and racism within the French police force, waving a variety of banners and signs with slogans including Black Lives Matter, I Can't Breathe, and Racism Kills. French authorities allowed the event to take place despite a ban on public gatherings amid the novel coronavirus pandemic.
People often tend, especially when they ask me questions, to want to compare it. Can it be compared to the United States, etc.? This is not my subject. In France, there are anti-racist laws. I, as a young person and with other activists, wanting to apply to all aspects of society. Would like to never get to that point of police causing the death of someone live on television, but obviously the fact that there is a dead person, there is a consciousness, a collective awareness, especially this is a death that we witnessed live. I insist on this because it is not the first one and it will not be the last. But the fact of having seen everything and not seeing this torture that he had undergone, yes, it awakened consciousness.
Healthcare workers gathered outside the Gregorio Marañón hospital in Spain's capital, Madrid, to protest against shortages of medical supplies. Demonstrators also rejected the privatisation of the facility's cleaning service. The protesters called for better working conditions, which have deteriorated in the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, and stressed that they were severely overstretched.
The staff is exhausted. It's true, there have been many casualties, some directly related to COVID, others indirectly related to it. A lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of fear of coming back, a lot of fear of the new normal.
The pandemic has revealed that we are in a bad situation. We are being advertised as the best healthcare workers in the world, and we can become that if it is well managed. This has shown that we cannot perform or care for citizens like they really deserve. That's why we have this crisis.
Portugal's Finance Minister Mário Centeno has resigned and also announced that he wouldn't be seeking another term as president of the Eurogroup. Centeno didn't offer a reason for his resignation. He's credited with bringing Portugal's budget deficit close to zero after it ballooned during Europe's financial crisis. He's also headed the Eurogroup, a framework for meetings of Eurozone finance ministers, since December 2017. His term was due to end next month, but now he has invited applications for the post, with a vote on his successor planned for July 9th. New Zealand has lifted all domestic restrictions on social distancing and mass gatherings after reporting no active cases of the coronavirus. The country moved to level 1 after no new cases were reported for 17 days. New Zealand first went into lockdown on March 25th, setting up a 4-stage alert system. Most businesses were shut, schools were closed, and people were told to stay at home. The country's borders remain closed to foreign travellers, and all New Zealanders arriving to the country must abide by a 14-day period of self-isolation. Diesel spilled on May 29th in the Arctic Circle continues to move towards the sea, despite attempts by Russian authorities to control the disaster. The diesel that spilled from the Norilsk thermal power plant has now reached Lake Payasino, and according to local authorities, it is impossible to predict how the contamination will affect the natural environment and biodiversity. As a result of the spill, some 21,000 tonnes of diesel fuel have contaminated the surrounding land and rivers. According to Greenpeace, the accident in the Arctic is comparable to the Exxon Valdez tanker spill, which occurred 3 decades ago off the coast of Alaska. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has cut off all communication lines with South Korea, including military hotlines, as tensions escalate between the two countries. At noon on Tuesday, North Korea shut down its Inter-Korean Liaison Office, according to local media. This comes as Pyongyang denounced Seoul's failure to stop propaganda leaflets from being dropped into the north. It further warned that the campaign was a hostile act that violated the peace agreements reached during the 2018 Panmunjom summit. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi told his British counterpart Dominic Raab on Tuesday that he expects the United Kingdom to respect China's legitimate right to safeguard national security in Hong Kong. Yi said that nations have the responsibility to defend multilateralism and together safeguard the international system with the United Nations as a strong guarantee of international peace and stability. He reminded Foreign Secretary Raab that Hong Kong's affairs are exclusively the internal affairs of China and stressed that China will not tolerate any external interference. And China has criticised the United States for including Beijing's efforts to find a COVID-19 vaccine in its ongoing rivalry. The spokesperson for the Foreign Ministry, Huan Changyin, has warned that there is no competition to find a vaccine because human lives are at stake. The official also slammed accusations by Republican Senator Rock Scott that China attempted to stop or sabotage the development of a vaccine in Western countries. Changyin also insisted that, like other nations, the US must be committed to making any vaccine it develops available to the world once ready. And we're taking one last break now, but stay with us for more. Welcome back to From the South. Residents of a slum in the Kenyan capital Nairobi protested against police brutality on Monday, a week after the death of a homeless man who was shot and killed by police. James Murethi was accused of violating a curfew which had been in place during the coronavirus outbreak before he was shot. It sparked Monday's demonstrators in the densely populated Mathar slum, which went ahead despite warnings from authorities that protesters could face jail for gathering during the pandemic. In recent days, human rights activists have claimed that 19 people, all from low-income areas, have been killed in police enforcement of the curfew. Kenya's Independent Policing Oversight Authority said it was investigating another 6 deaths allegedly linked to the police since May 29th, including that of James Murethi.
We are going all the way, every ghetto to ghetto, telling them to stop killing our kids. Mothers are crying, sisters, everybody. We are all hurt by this injustice of police brutality.
Burundi's outgoing president, Pierre Nkurunziza, has died of a heart attack. A statement from the government announced with great sorrow to Burundians and the international community the passing of the president at the age of 55. Nkurunziza died at Karusi Hospital after suffering a heart attack on June 8th. In power since 2005, the president was due to be replaced in August by his political ally, Evariste Ndayishimiye, who was declared the winner of the May 20th presidential election. The chairman of Tanzania's main opposition party, Freeman Mbowe, has been hospitalised after being attacked by unknown assailants. According to police, Mbowe was returning home late on Monday when he was attacked by 3 people who broke his right leg. His Chadema party says the attack was politically motivated, as he has repeatedly accused the government of covering up the true extent of the coronavirus in Tanzania. Mbowe and several other opposition MPs were also briefly jailed in March in connection with a banned protest against President John Magufuli's government. A huge fire broke out at an oil field in northeastern India after gas that had been leaking for 2 weeks from an exploded well ignited. Authorities also launched a probe into the deaths of 5 people who died since the gas started leaking on May 27th. The leak started after a gas well in an oil field managed by state-owned India Ltd blew out. Authorities have established an emergency zone of 1.5 kilometres around the oil field and evacuated about 2,500 people from their homes. Work is gradually resuming in Pakistan under strict COVID-19 prevention measures as the number of confirmed cases topped 100,000 on June 8th. But business owners say that they've been greatly impacted by the pandemic and many wonder if they will even be able to reopen their doors. The Pakistani government rolled out strict rules in order for stores and some factories to reopen their doors. If any of the businesses are found to have violated the restrictions, they will be shut down. Pakistani authorities started lifting the lockdown on May 9th.
My business was great before the pandemic, but since the outbreak, the business has not been so good. Over the past 6 months, none of the stocks were sent from China. Before that, we could at least bring 12 containers of stocks back.
The CIA agent involved in the assassination of Iranian Major General Qasem Soleimani has been sentenced to death. Judiciary spokesperson Gholam Hossein Ismaili said Mahmoud Mousavi Majd was a spy for Mossad and the Central Intelligence Agency. He disclosed that the agent had provided information to the United States and Israeli intelligence services about the whereabouts of Soleimani, which led to his assassination and escalated tensions in the region. Soleimani was killed during a missile attack on January 3rd in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad. Now we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss, and thank you for watching.